Hey guys, quick heads up before I start the video. The link down below takes you to my Patreon, where you can download the project files for this video. Also gain access to my premium tutorials and in-depth courses where we build games together from start to finish. Check out my Patreon below, gain direct access to years of experience so that you can start working on your dream game tomorrow. Hello guys, alright, let's get into the next video. So, if you guys have seen the previous video, we just quickly set up this project. I showed you guys what this project is all about. And I made sure that our default character here is able to walk around and that we aim where we look, basically. So this is what we set up. We also allowed jumping. And I showed you guys that this works by default in multiplayer, and I also explained why. So to make this more of a game, we are now going to make new levels. So we're basically going to create the flow that we're going to go from the boot screen to the main menu. Then in the main menu, we want players to be able to host matches or to join matches using a server browser. Then once they join a match, we want them to basically spawn on an island, much like what you see in PUBG. So in PUBG, when players connect to a session, then first they spawn on an island. So let's say this is that island. Then they get a little 60-second countdown as soon as the minimum amount of required players is met. So if for PUBG, you need 100 players to start a match. And if 100 players are in the match, the 60-second countdown starts. Then after that period of time, I think we all know what happens next. And that is that you pretty much spawn in an airplane in the sky. You fly over the island in a certain line and then you can drop. And then the last man standing is the winner and the zone keeps closing in. So that's the whole game that we're making here. So to make the whole flow of everything, instead of just having one level where you click play and a character spawns, we're now going to set up all of the basics that we need here. So if you follow along, then we're going to get started right now. So let's click on File, New Level, and create ourselves an empty level. And then we're going to click Save here, click on the Levels folder, and we're going to call this the Bootscreen _ oh, I need to put my language to a different language real quick. There we go. Bootscreen _ level. Now we're going to go and hit Save. Then we got this level. Then we want another one, which will be our main menu level. It's also going to be fully in the dark here. So create a new empty level, hit save again. Let's call this main menu level and hit save again. And then we are going to swap this name out. So this was the previous testing level. So we're going to swap this name out to, let's call it actually testing level. Just because, and it is referenced inside of our project settings, or at least it was under maps and modes here as the editor startup level. So that's why we just got that message that it basically swapped out. And so now we've got a boot screen and a main menu level, and then the last one that we're going to need is going to be the actual level in which we play the game. And for that, I'm going to use a basic level. We will sculpt our own landscape and make somewhat of an actual level. So here we go, click on the levels folder and then type in, let's call it the Battle Royale _ level and hit save. All right, there we go. So now what do we have to do? Well, when the game starts up, so your windows.exe file starts up, then we want the game to start up in the boot screen. And the boot screen is where you typically get some UI that shows the logo of the game. It shows who made the game and all that type of good stuff, right? It shows that you use Unreal Engine. And then once that is done, so once the game is booted, then you typically go to your main menu. There you either host or join a session, and then you go to your Battle Royale. Now, obviously, most Battle Royale games use a dedicated server, so that means that you basically in the main menu you've got grouping systems, so you have the ability to group up with other players. Now typically grouping systems don't run on Unreal Engine replication because Unreal Engine replication requires you to be in a session, and to be in sessions we use something called a subsystem. And now there's a couple of subsystems at our disposal. So we got, for example, Steam, we got Epic Online Services, and some others like the Google Play Store, for example. So those are subsystems, and what they do is that they bring our offline game. So if we were to just click play here, then our offline null subsystem game exists on our local network, and what these subsystems do is that they bring our game to the internet for anybody worldwide to be able to join our own hosted sessions. But then obviously a player will be the host. And if a player is the host and the host disconnects, then the whole session would disconnect. So for that reason, most actual games like PUBG, they use dedicated servers that are standalone. And then inside of the main menu, the way that they get people connected to each other is that they got other systems, for example, such as PlayFab, where you got matchmaking and party systems, and that's where they group up players in the main menu, and then together these players would connect to a dedicated server that is spun up in runtime, because a game like PUBG has hundreds of thousands of players online at the same time, and then all little squads will basically connect to available dedicated servers, play their game there, return back to the main menu. But since that requires all dedicated server logic, and I might do that in some other course, we're gonna stick to hosting a listen server game for this game. So what that means is that we are simply gonna have players host our mini battle royales here, and then we're gonna showcase all of the fundamental basics of Unreal Engine multiplayer and how that all works. So yeah, we're gonna stick to that. So let's get started. First of all, if we want the .exit to start up in the boot screen level, then we need to set the boot screen level as the default startup level for the game. So to do that, you go over here to Edit, you click Project Settings, and then you click on Maps and Modes. Then over here we see a couple of options, so we can set a default game mode and default maps. And this is the interesting one for now. We can also open up Advanced here. And then what do we see? We see Editor Startup Level. So that's where do we want our editor to start all the time? Well, for the editor, it is fine to start in, let's say, the main menu, because then we instantly want to get our functionality. And then for the game, we want it to start inside of the boot screen level, so that we see the logo of the game, etc. And in the boot screen level, we should code the functionality that automatically takes us to the main menu level after it's done showing the logo and everything. Then we see the option to fill in a transition map and a server default map. So what is a transition map? Well, when in Unreal Engine you travel from one level to another, so let's say you go from the main menu to the Battle Royale, or even more specific, let's say that you first go to a Battle Royale lobby, and then in the lobby people got character select and all that good stuff, and then from the lobby they will travel into the Battle Royale level, then you basically travel there. And if you do not want to disconnect players during travel, you're going to have to use something called seamless travel, and that ensures that people stay connected. And when you seamless travel, when you travel in Unreal in general, complete levels will have to load out and then they're going to be loaded in again, which means that everything inside of the level, all your actors, all of your classes and logic and functionality will basically get destroyed. And then once your whole level gets destroyed, we have to have a level loaded up in the meantime. And that is the level that Unreal Engine calls a transition level. So we basically go to this map and then we stay here for a little while and then we go to the other map. So we're gonna have to create one of those as well. So simply click on new level, empty level, and then hit save here. And we're gonna call this one our travel underscore level and hit save. So that's our travel level. Then up here in the project settings, we're gonna set that one as our transition level here. And the server default map, it's really not that important, as it says as well, it's only for dedicated servers. So when packaging dedicated servers, you don't have the overhead of all the 3D stuff and the widgets and everything. It's only the code of the game, so only your blueprints will get exported on the server side. So it will only do your server side blueprint logic. And because of that, you call a dedicated server headless, so it doesn't have any 3D, any widgets, nothing like that. And to export a dedicated server, you can only export one map at a time. So you're going to have to set one map as a selected map, and then you're going to have to build your project as such, and then you get a file for your dedicated server. And typically, yeah, then your dedicated server map, you would have to install that here. So that could be the Battle Royale level. But since we're not using a dedicated server, we're going to keep it to none. All right, so that's setting up all of these levels. Then one important thing to do is that you want to build your levels. So if we open up the boot screen, we want to quickly go on build and then click on build all levels. This generates all of the lighting data and such. I recommend always just simply building this and then hit save. Here we go, save all. So this gives us a build data for the boot screen level. Then we're gonna do the same for the main menu. So we're quickly gonna click on build all levels. And hit save all. If we click away and here again, then it's next to the level nicely. We got our testing level and then our travel level that still needs some build data here. So we're gonna build the travel level as well. Let this all do its thing and then hit save. All right, so there we go. So now each level has their corresponding build data, and that's the way that we want it. And then we're going to open up the travel level, or sorry, the boot screen level. So we double click it, then over here we see that we are currently in this level, and this is where we want to show the logos of the game. So we're going to have to make some widgets, some UI that we want to show. So in the widgets folder, we're going to make a new folder and we're going to call it boot. For our boot screen. Then inside of this folder, we're gonna right click, go to user interface, widget blueprint, get ourselves a user widget class and call this WB boot screen. And then if we open this up, then we're quickly gonna design some rough looking boot screen. So for this, we need a canvas panel here. Oh. I'm not sure, guys. It said that something disconnected here, but it's all fine. So yeah, so we drag in a canvas panel here into the hierarchy. This gives us this canvas panel. Now we can drag any element anywhere, but we're just going to be using some text here. So drag some text into the middle, then click anchor and hold Control, click the center, hold Shift, click the center. Now it's neatly in the middle. Then we're going to select size to content, and here we're going to give our project. This is going to be our fake logo. So we're just going to call this multiplayer bean battle Royale. Yeah, so that's our beautiful logo. That looks pretty cool. And then we need some color behind here. So we're just going to simply drag in an image above here. Let's rename this image to background underscore image. Does not need to be a variable. We want this to be full screen. So hit Control and Shift. And then under color and opacity, we're simply going to make it something like this black looking color. That's fine. Then I really quickly want to animate this so that you guys have some type of idea of what a boot screen would look like. So we're going to select our text and click animation, and let's call it load in. And then when we click on this animation over here, if you don't have the animation panel, by the way, go to Windows, and then here we click animations. So yeah, with your animation selected, we're going to click on track for the text. So the text is what we want to make a track for. And we are simply going to do a render opacity, and let's also do a transform so that we can scale it. So what we want to happen is, let's say that it takes 0.75 seconds to become 1 opacity. So we're going to click the plus, and then we also want it to become 1 scale. So the scale needs to be 1. Then if we go back to the first one, we're going to set the render opacity to 0 and the scale to 0 as well. So to preview our animation, we click here and press spacebar, and that's it. And then, yeah, let's add some more text here. So we grab another text, we anchor this to the bottom. Check out Cactus Center right now on Steam in Early Access. It's a very fun multiplayer video game, cheaper than the Starbucks coffee. So if you want to have a good time with your friends or strangers, click that link down below, and I appreciate every single one of you, and enjoy the rest of the video. Bye! Control click and shift click. Size to content, we're going to give it some padding from the bottom. So let's do -100. And here we could write something like be the last man standing, or rather be the last bean standing. And then let's make this a bit smaller. So let's do 20, and we can make this italic. So this would be our second caption. So let's just do that second caption text. Doesn't really matter what you call it. Okay, we're gonna select this one too. We want to add it to the same track here. So we're gonna click on the plus and then add another track for this second text. And then once this first text is animated in, then we want this text to be animated in. So let's just make a funny transform. Oh, and now make sure that you actually put your timeline. Yeah, no, we want to start it here. So put your timeline there, and then click on transform. Open it up. Let's get funny with this rotation. So let's say that we want this to rotate till 2 seconds, 360 degrees. I know it's a bit random, but here we go. Multiplayer beam battle royale, and then at the same time we want it to appear starting here. So let's add also a render opacity track, and we want it to be full opacity over here and 0 opacity over here. So it's a bit of a random animation, but hey, it's a boot screen. So it goes like this. Whoop. Be the last man standing. Okay, and then once that happens, then let's make sure that we fade everything out. So over here, we're gonna do another render opacity, and the same for this one. And then we want to fade these guys out till 3 seconds to go to 0 opacity. Okay, so now we got this beautiful boot screen going on. They fade out, and not only we want them to fade out, but let's also fade out this background, because why not? So click on the background, get your background, put your timeline at this marker here, and then let's do render opacity from 1 to 0. Okay, so now that we got that animation, we can preview it one last time. And now because we start here with a render opacity of 1, we also want to have a render opacity of 1 here. So it stays like this, and then everything fades. That's beautiful. Now we go ahead and go into the graph, and then we can remove the event pre-construct and a tick. We're going to drag in our load-in animation and say play animation, but we want to play the animation with a finished event. And then this is the node that we get. Inside of the animation goes the actual animation. Inside of widget goes self, because this is the widget in which we want to animate this. Hit compile and save, and that's it for now. So when this widget gets created, it simply plays with a finished event, and we're going to use that in a little bit. So now next up, we are in the boot screen level right now, as we see over here. If we click play, nothing happens. So let's go ahead and add the widget to the screen. Well, there's many ways to add a widget to the screen, so we could do that using some of these classes, such as player controller. But since this is the boot screen and it's not that important, we can directly code this, in this case, inside of the level blueprint of the boot screen. And that's what we're going to do here. So with your boot screen selected, with your boot screen level opened, we're gonna drag off of begin play, typing create widget, and then the widget that we want to create is the boot screen widget. The owning player, well, we don't need to fill it in because nobody really needs to own this. Then we're gonna drag off of here and type in add to viewport to add the boot screen to the viewport. And let's go ahead and preview that. Beautiful. Okay, and then we do see that we have to click the game for the mouse to go away. So let's make sure that the game automatically consumes our input and removes our mouse. So to do that, we're going to drag off here and set input mode to game only. And then here the player controller is just get player controller, which is us at index 0. Okay, now if we hit play, you'll see that our mouse automatically gets removed and that we directly focus the viewport. So once that little animation is done, we basically want to travel to the main menu level, in which we then get the main menu UI. So that logic we can code inside of the boot screen widget. So let's go to the graph, and then basically once it's finished here, we're going to drag off of finished and type in open level by name. So open level and then by name, and then in here would go the actual level name of the main menu. So what you can do to ensure that you type it correctly, double click, control copy, paste that stuff in here. We don't need to change any of these settings, so this is fine. So that's it. And then we basically are in the main menu level. So open up the main menu level. We're now there. This one, yet again, is also completely dark. So let's make some UI for this. But since the main menu level contains some more functionality, we do want to have some classes here, and we are not going to be coding everything inside of the level blueprint here. So for the main menu, let's go ahead and actually create some basic game mode and a player controller that can handle all of the main menu UI stuff. So click the blueprints folder, go to game modes, and this time instead of going into the core folder, we're gonna make a new folder and call it main menu. And in here, we're going to have a separate game mode instead of this core game mode and player controller. We're just going to have a separate main menu game mode and player controller, as we do not need the shared logic that will exist in here. So rather, this is actually more of our core classes for the gameplay level instead of for the main menu level, as the main menu level is simply single player. I cannot think of many functions that need to be shared with this core functionality here. So what we're going to do is right click, go to blueprint class, then we go to all classes, we're going to type in game mode, get ourselves a game mode and hit select, type in bpgm main menu, and then we're going to make ourselves a little player controller as well, player controller, and call it bppc main menu. Next up, we're going to drag this one into the level here, and then the default pawn class, we don't need a character in this game mode, so we're going to simply set it to none, and then the player controller, we're going to drag it into the player controller. Now keep in mind, you can set the game mode settings all over here. You could also open up the game mode as I did in the previous video, click on class defaults, and then set the settings over here. That has the same result. Okay, with that said, we now need some main menu UI that we want to appear whenever we enter the main menu, and we're going to create that UI inside of the player controller. So the player controller in this case is going to be responsible for creating our main menu UI. And yes, in Unreal Engine you also have a HUD class. Well, since we don't really need that much HUD or any complicated stuff in the main menu, we can simply create our management of our user interface on the player controller for this scenario in the main menu. All right, so next up, let's go ahead and create some main menu UI. So we're going to click here on widgets, and then we're going to right click here, make a new folder and call this main menu. And then inside of the main menu, we're going to right click user interface widget blueprint and create ourselves a user widget called widget blueprint main menu. We're going to open this guy up and we're going to go ahead and style it. Now at this point we can close the boot screen since we don't no longer need that. And then yeah, so the main menu, what do we need? We need a canvas panel. We need some type of a nice background. So we're going to drag ourselves in an image. That image does not need to be variable. We can simply call it background image. The reason I want to rename it is that we get a nice structure going on the left here. We're then going to click the anchor, hold Control, hold Shift. We're going to give it a nice background color, a little bit lighter than the boot screen, like this. We're going to hit compile save, and we're going to lock it here because we don't accidentally want to drag it out of place. All right. So typically in your main menu, you would have your logo somewhere, and then you would have buttons like start game, find game, settings, quit. And yes, we're going to come to all of that. So first of all, let's put the logo of the game up here. So we're simply going to do it like this and type in multiplayer bean battle royale, epic name. We're going to size it to the content. Let's do 50 of the side, 50 of the top. Compile save. Then we are going to get ourselves a little vertical box here, and this vertical box we're going to anchor it to the left of the screen, so hold Control Shift. Let's click size to content, and then inside of the vertical box we're going to be making some buttons, and these buttons are going to be responsible for the like create game, find game, join game. So now there's multiple ways of making buttons, but first let's put this vertical box a bit off of the side. So let's give it 100 padding, so it's like here. So we could either just drag in a button, and then we get a button, and then we can drag in text into the button, and then we can style this individual button over here. So we can set a state for when the button is normal, when it's hovered, when it's pressed. We can set some sounds, we can set the spacing for everything. And then obviously what you could do is that if you need another button, you can Control and then click the vertical box and paste it. So that's one way to do it. But If we want to generalize this all a little bit and don't keep using the same button, we can also make a button base class. And that's what I recommend always in Unreal, to use as many base classes as you possibly can, because it just makes life easier and more organized. So for showing you guys all the right stuff, I'm actually going to go ahead and do that right now. So we're going to delete this button, hit compile and save, and we're going to make ourselves just a default button class that is going to be reusable, so that you guys know how this stuff works. So we're going to click on user interface widget, make another user widget. Let's call it WB base underscore button, or rather, let's call it base underscore button. Okay, that's great. Then we're going to open this guy up. We're going to click on, well, I'll do that in a little bit. We're going to drag our button in, and let's also get ourselves a size box. So we're going to get a size box first, and then we're going to drag the button into the size box. Now it's full screen here. So to preview the actual size of this, we're going to click on desired on screen, and then it becomes the actual size that it would be when we drag it into some other widget here. So with our base button here, we're going to rename this to simply be named button, and then we're going to drag some text into here. Now the text is a bit big, so let's resize that to, let's say, 14. And this text needs to be a variable because we want to be able to change it. So we're going to call it button text underscore text, and we're going to say is variable. And we're also going to style the button here. So the normal color, or you could put textures in here, set it to box, and then you would have clean looking buttons. But what we're going to do is we're simply going to color it a little bit. So let's make it something like this nice blue here. We're going to control copy. Another way to copy is that you hold shift and then you can right click here. Then go to the hovered state, shift and left click here. Then we're going to make it a tiny bit darker. When we hover over it, hit OK, control copy this one, and shift copy this one, and then shift left click here. And then we're going to make it a tiny bit darker yet again. So there we go. We don't have any sounds or anything, so nothing fancy like that, but this is fine for now. And then let's code it so that we can dynamically set the text here, and each button will have different functionality when you click it. So I'll show you guys how you can handle that. So first of all, this text needs to be editable, and also the size of the button. So for the size box here, we could either just have the button automatically scale whenever we put more text in here. So if we were to copy paste this text, then it would just become a very long button, or we could hard set the scale of the button. So let's see. For the purpose of this video, let's remove the size box. So we're going to right click it and replace, just to have a normal button like this. So now we go ahead and code it. We go to the graph. We remove the event tick and the construct, and this time we keep the event pre-construct. And the reason that we keep this one and not the event construct is because this event also works inside of the editor. So when we have code here and we click on compile save, then we'll actually see changes happening here in runtime. And that's going to be easy for modular buttons that we want to use, because then we can actually properly see whatever values we filled in on that button. So back on the base class here, we're going to go to the graph, drag in our text, drag off of it and type in set text, because this is what we want to change. Hook that up, and then we're going to drag off of the variable, promote this to a variable, and call this button underscore text. And then for us to be able to change this text inside of another widget, we're going to have to click instance editable here. Then hit compile and save, and there we go. And next up, we have the actual button event for when we click it. Oh yeah, so already when I compiled, you see that the text is now set to none. That's because this variable's default setting is empty. So what we can do here is type in button text as a default value, hit compile and save. And then, as you see, it will showcase that. So next up, we got the actual button itself. If we scroll down, we get the events for the button. So we need the on-clicked event, because if we click this guy, we want stuff to happen, but we want different stuff to happen for every button that we click. So that in that case, we're going to use an event dispatcher here to forward the event to any other widget that uses the button. So click the base button, then click on event dispatcher and call this one on clicked. Then we're simply going to drag our event dispatcher in and hit call. Hook this up, and there you go. So now we got ourselves a beautiful modular button. Now back inside of the main menu, we can then use that guy. So we had our little vertical box here. If we scroll all the way down, we can go to user created, and here we will see our base button. Now if we drag this guy into the box, then we see it appear over here, and then we can simply rename it. So this button here, we're gonna call it the create game underscore button. And then we can set the value for the text over here. And the reason that we can set this value for this text is because we selected this variable to be exposed. So if I remove this I and then go to the main menu, then we see that we don't have the ability to fill in the text. But then when I click on the I, hit compile, save, then we see the ability to change the text. So this guy, since it's the create game button, we wanted to say create game. So that's this. Then we're going to duplicate it, and this will be our find game button. So this, we're gonna make it say find game, and then we're gonna need one last button. That will be our our exit game, exit game button. And we want this to say exit. There we go. Now there needs to be a bit of space in between these guys. So select the first one, go to padding. Let's put 15 on the bottom. Same for this one, 15 on the bottom. And they do appear a tiny bit small, but yeah, so let's scale them up a little bit. So inside of our base button, we're also gonna make this size of the font exposed so that we can set the size of the font wherever we use the button. So to do that, we're gonna drag off of the button text here and type in set font. And then we get this little node. We're going to drag off of the set font, and then here it gives us the ability to set the size. So yeah, we're also going to do get font. So drag off it to get font, and then basically we're going to right click this and split, just like this. And then the font family is just, we're going to plug all these settings in because we don't really want to override all of these settings. So these settings that I just dragged out of here is basically whatever you set it as over here. But the only one that we want to be dynamic and changed is the size. So we're going to promote it to variable, call it font size, and then hit compile, save. Let's set a default value of 14. Compile, save, and click on the I to expose it. So right now, because of this, if we go back to the main menu, we can click these buttons and set the font size way larger. So let's make these guys, yeah, 24 is good for the main menu. So there we go, 24, 24. Actually, let's have the exit button be a bit smaller. Then we can also click the buttons and set this one to be to the left here, this one to the left, and this one to the left, so that they are their respective sizes, if that's what you like. If you want them to be all the same size, then just keep it like this, right? All right, I'm gonna put it like this. Okay, and then, so how can we now have these buttons, how can we get their click events? So this on button clicked, well, since we installed this event dispatcher, then wherever we use the button right now, so in the main menu, we can simply click our self-created widget, go down, and this is where all event dispatchers will show. So if I literally make a new event dispatcher and call it do funny lol, right, and hit compile, save. If I then click on my widgets here, those events will actually show. And then if you hook up those events to something here inside of your graph, then whatever widget uses these classes will be able to use the events that pop off of here. So back in here, we just need, we don't need this event, so we're going to remove it, compile, save. So we're going to click to create game button, go all the way down, and hit on clicked. We want the same for the find game button. And we want the same for the quit game button. There we go. Gonna remove all the basic events here. And then the first one that we're gonna code is the quit game. So here we're gonna drag off and type in quit game, which is a default function in Unreal, and that's it. And then for these two, we're simply gonna do a little print string, and we're gonna say create game, and then we're gonna do another print string, and we're gonna make it say find game. Okay, so now that we got our main menu done, then we need to still put it inside of our face in the screen. So to do that, we're going to go back to our classes here. We are inside of the main menu level, and we already assigned the classes to level. We're now going to open up the player controller, and we're going to use the begin play event of the player controller to create that UI for us. Now, since we are in an offline level, such as the main menu, we don't need to do a check if, that, for example, says is locally controlled. So is local player controller. We don't need to execute these checks since we are in a single player standalone level when we exist inside of the main menu. So in this case, we can simply just drag off and type in create widget. The widget I want to create is the main menu. We do want to give it ownership just to be sure. So we're going to type in self as the player controller. We're then going to also promote this one to a variable. So call it widget blueprint main menu. The reason we promote this is that we might want to control things inside of this main menu later on, such as when I am in the main menu and I click escape, I want to pop up some are you sure you want to quit the game panel, for example. So to do that, I need to be able to call events that exist inside of the main menu widget. So for that reason, we store a little variable to it. Then we're going to add it to the viewport to actually put it in our screen. And let's go ahead and preview this. So to preview it properly, we're going to go to our boot screen level. Then we're going to go and hit play here. So it starts up with our animation, and then we go into the main menu level. But now what we do see is that I don't have a mouse. So we do want to have a mouse so that we can click stuff. Now there's multiple ways of doing it. We can either drag off here and type in set mouse cursor. Set show mouse cursor. This one, we can simply set it to true. But this is also a setting that exists inside of the player controllers by default. So if we click on class defaults, then we have show mouse cursor. And if we put it to true here, it will automatically give us a mouse cursor. And then we also just want to actually focus this widget. So after we added it to the viewport, we're going to get the main menu again. And we're going to say set input mode UI only, because we just want to focus this UI. And then the player controller here is going to be again ourselves, because we are the player controller. So just like that. So right now, if we go back to the boot screen level again, we hit play, we focus, we see our animations, we're here, we got a mouse, and we can click the create button. It will do the print string, it will do this print string, and if we click exit, it quits the game. So that's a lot of more extra additional required setup in this video that we need for this grand tutorial series for our multiplayer Beam Battle Royale game. If you guys enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. That helps out the channel a lot. Guys, be sure to check out the Patreon where you can download the complete project file for this tutorial series. In the next video, we are actually going to be creating the whole session logic. So we're literally going to be setting up the create game screen, the finding of games and being able to join games. And then we're actually going to make it so that people can connect to each other and connect to each other in multiplayer in the Battle Royale level here, from the main menu to the Battle Royale level. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and see you guys in the next one. Bye!